Hello everyone. In a few moments we will start with my presentation. But for the meantime, you may introduce yourself in the comment section or in the chat box. You may say who you are, where you are from, and what's your pledge for the climate. Don't forget to add the hashtag FYW Climate Strike. Thank you very much and see you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day. A nature's greeting to everyone. Or, just like how we say it here in the Philippines, isang makakalikasang pagbati sa inyong lahat. Welcome to the climate education session of today's event. I am joining for your World's Climate Strike, all the way from the Philippines. It is a pleasure being in the company of climate advocates, especially youth advocates from all around the world for this event. Well, without much ado, let's get this session started. Again, hello and welcome to the Transformative Climate Education from Awareness to Action presentation. I am Keith SIGFRED and I will be this session's presenter. I am a youth climate advocate from the Philippines. Also, I am a trained climate reality leader of the Climate Reality Leadership course. I received my training last July 18 to 26, 2020, just last month, during the first ever global training of the Climate Reality Project. I also have a blog where I write my opinion on things about climate change and other issues related to it. I am a teacher by training, having been able to finish the degree in education with a major in biological sciences. I also hold a professional teaching license. Currently, I am an incoming graduate student under the program Master of Science in Microbiology in the University of the Philippines, Diliman. For those who are watching us through YouTube and Facebook, I encourage you to share these presentations in your social media accounts and pages. You may use the following hashtags when you do share this live stream. Hashtag FYW Climate Strike, hashtag Educate and Empower, and hashtag Awareness to Action. Please invite your friends, family, and followers to join us, especially those who are involved in the field of climate education. In this presentation, I will be talking about how we can make climate education transformative, going beyond the traditional. First, we are going to tackle what climate education is, and we're going to define what environmental literacy is. Next, I will be sharing some pedagogical techniques and concepts on how we can make the learning more engaging for our students. And lastly, I will be talking about how we can transform what the learners know into doable actions. Now, let me ask you this. Are you ready? Well, I think everyone is ready, so let's get into it. Environmental literacy. May I ask you this? Have you heard of this topic before, or of this concept before? Well, maybe some of us have heard of this before, but for some, this is a new concept and you might have just heard it now. So for everyone's information, let us define what environmental literacy really is. Environmental literacy is defined as understanding and appreciating the natural world, our place in it, and how the issues related to the environment affect us in our daily lives. Environmental literacy is not just about knowing what the environment is or knowing the science behind the different processes happening in the environment. It is also about understanding the environment, how we humans affect the environment with what we do, and in return, how the environment and the different things happening on it affects us. So that's what environmental literacy is. We can also define it as an individual's understanding, the set of skills and motivation to make responsible decisions that consider his or her relationship to the natural systems, communities, and future generations. Beyond merely knowing and understanding the environment and our role in it, environmental literacy is also about applying what we have learned. Applying in the form of making informed decisions that take into consideration not just ourselves, but also the life of others, the environment itself, and others who would come after us, or the future generations. That's what environmental literacy is. Because knowing is not enough. We should remember that knowledge and literacy are not equivalents. Environmental literacy is more than just comprehending the different topics about the environment. It is not all about the science. It is not all about the books. It also demonstrates that thing that we have learned. We must be able to demonstrate it in form of actions, in eco-conscious actions. That's what environmental literacy is. Just like what I have been repeating, environmental literacy is more than just knowing the science behind the environment and the different processes happening on it. It also includes experiences and actions. So we can say that environmental literacy has three parts: the knowledge component, the experience component, and the action component. We all know that the knowledge component includes knowing and understanding the different environmental concepts. For example, knowing how the greenhouse effect happens, what the different greenhouse gases are, and how it affects us. That's merely knowing. Next, the experiences component includes the past and present experiences of a person or of our students with the environment or with the different things happening in our environment. This component consists of the students' experiences during heavy storms, for example, or extreme heat waves or any other environmental events. It could also include the experiences of the students when they go out, they visit the forest, you go have a nature trip in your local park. That includes it because it is part of the students' experiences. And lastly, the action component. This is about the students applying what they have learned. This can be done by doing activities that will promote environmental protection and conservation, and also alleviating the effects of climate change. Activities such as cleanup drives, waste segregation, teach-ins fall in this component. Those three things, or those three components, must be present to consider an individual as environmentally literate. But beyond those three, other things should be included in environmental literacy, or other things must be present before we can say that a certain person is really environmentally literate. Now, to be considered environmentally literate or to be considered an environmentally literate individual, a person should also recognize that the different issues happening in our environment, the climate, and in our world in general are interconnected. We must understand that these issues are connected not only to ecology, that the environmental and climate crisis is not isolated. It also involves economics, cultures, politics, and other sections of the society. And also, we must recognize that whatever decision we make, it will have an effect to the environment, even if we first initially do not intend it to be. And again, because this is related to politics, whatever policy, law, or ordinances our government will pass, it will have a very significant effect on the environment. Now, wrapping all those things up, and wrapping the definition of what an environmentally literate person is, let's give examples of what actions do this environmentally literate individual must do. So first, when deciding on things, even if it is not directly connected to the environment, an individual, especially an environmentally literate individual, must always consider the impact of his or her decision not only to himself, but to others, and of course to the environment. He or she should also be willing to act on these decisions that he will make in order to make sure that the well-being of others and of the society in general, and of course of the environment, will not be only not harmed, but it will or should also improve. And lastly, as a responsible citizen of a certain country and as an active citizen of the world, an environmentally literate individual must actively participate in civic life, fulfilling his duties as citizens of a certain place. So that's what environmental literacy is, and that's who an environmentally literate person is. Now that we know that, I think the question now is, how do we make people climate and environmentally literate? Well, I think some of us are environmentally literate at an early age. One specific example that I can think of is the environmental literacy of indigenous people. We know that indigenous people have a very deep connection with the environment. They learn the environment in a deeper way, more than the way that we learn about it. I'd even like to call this as their innate environmental literacy. Why? Because even at an early age, they are already eco-conscious. They already take into consideration the environment and the life of others when doing things. They have a profound understanding of nature beyond science. And whatever thing they do or the decision they make, they will always consider its effect on the environment first. That's why I would consider them as innately environmentally literate. We often call them the guardians of nature, right? So, how about for us who are not innately environmentally literate? How can we become environmentally literate individuals? Well, for that, we have climate education. But what is climate education? Is it just about learning the climate, learning the different processes of the climate? And why is it important, especially now? Why do we want climate education to be a part of the school curriculum, especially now? Well, according to UNESCO, education is an essential element of the global response to climate change. That is very true. It is easier to encourage people when they know things, or when they are informed on certain things, compared to those who are not. Even just a little bit of knowledge, that is already helpful, or just a little bit of information regarding the climate crisis, that is more than enough. And this is where climate education enters. First, let's define what climate education is. Well, climate education is an educational program that helps the general public, and especially the future generations or the youth, to understand and relate to the different climate-related issues, to make lifestyle changes, to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and their carbon footprints, and adapt to the changing local condition. It is an educational program that we can apply in both formal and non-formal education that aims to develop people, especially the youth, to become more environmentally literate. This is done by teaching them the issues and then doing action, helping them do action on what they have just learned. So it doesn't stop at knowing things. After knowing, they must be able to do something. Because the main goal of climate education is to help people understand the impact of global warming today and increase the climate and environmental literacy among the young people. And in doing this, maybe, just maybe, more people would realize that we need to act, and we need to act now. Upon realization, I hope that they would join us in the climate movement. That's why we have climate education. Now, why am I giving so much emphasis on the youth? Why should this be done at an early age? Well, going back to the foundation of educational psychology, instilling climate change awareness at a very young age is ultimately the best way to change the behavior and attitudes of the young people. Start them young, so to speak. You must remember that children spend most of their formative years in school. Most of the foundational concepts or the building block of their knowledge were learned from their time in school. And these foundational concepts will have a very significant role in the way of thinking of these children. That's the reason why we need to introduce them to the different issues of the climate change or of the climate crisis and make them aware of what is happening. And hopefully they will realize later on that we really need to act now. Now let's talk about why do we need to push for climate education? Why not just tell them stories about the climate change or do seminars? But why do we need to have this climate education curriculum as a standardized program or as a fixed program? Well, I have 3 reasons, but I know that there are more. So the first one is urgency. Because of the rapid increase of the magnitude, and not just the magnitude but also the frequency of extreme weather events brought about the climate crisis, we need to act now. And we can only do that if we have a massive number of informed people with us in this fight. Because if we will not act now, our situation would never go anywhere but worse. That's why we really need to have this information drive and inform as many individuals as we can about the current status of our climate and hopefully encourage them to join the climate movement, to do sustainable living, to be more eco-conscious, to be more environmentally sustainable, to be environmentally literate. The second thing is to fight misinformation. Why? Because fake news about the climate crisis is very rampant, especially in the social media. And we have a lot of climate deniers spewing out this false information and unverified information about the climate crisis. This is a very dangerous thing because this can easily trick anyone, especially those who are not very familiar with the concept of climate crisis. Climate deniers and false news spreaders use half-baked facts and appeal to emotion to persuade others in believing that climate change is not real. For example, statements such as climate change is not real, it is happening, it has always happened before, you are just overreacting. Those statements and then adding a little bit of unverified data to look like it's true. We need to fight that. And we can do that if we have a lot of informed individuals who can help others also to check and verify this information. And lastly, we need people to understand that the climate and environmental issues are not isolated from the other issues that we are currently experiencing. I have already mentioned this. They need to know the social aspect, the health aspect, the rights aspect of climate crisis, because they will realize that they are affected, even though they think that they are not, because they are not experiencing very strong typhoon or very high heat waves, but in one way or another they are affected by the climate crisis. However, we can only do so much based on our capacity, based on the resources present, based on what the teachers' capabilities are. There are always challenges that will be faced when implementing this program, and we know that. Here I have two of the challenges that I think would create a hindrance in the implementation of this program. So these two examples are more teacher-centered, or these are teacher factor challenges. There are more, I know, such as community support, the resources, the willingness of the parents to enroll their children in climate education, and a whole lot more. But I would be talking about this too. So the first one is about the specialization of the teachers. We lack teachers who have a specialization in climate and environmental sciences, especially in the primary education. Most of our environmental scientists are working in laboratories or working in the academe. Only a little are actually working as educators, helping the youth mold their environmental literacy. Some even don't have a very good foundation of environmental science during their college years. I am lucky because I took courses that helped me understand not only the science aspect of these environmental concepts, but also the social aspects of it. But others did not. Mostly, the teachers who are teaching climate educations or science teachers, who, I am not saying this to demoralize the science teachers. I am a science teacher myself. But because of our specialization, we think, or we often forget, the social aspect of climate education, how it is related to politics, how climate change is related to human rights, how it is affected to public health. If we do so, we just touch it a little bit, but we do not dwell so much on these topics. And in connection to that is the multidisciplinary nature of climate change. This becomes a challenge to teachers, because some teachers, again, do not specialize in climate education. That's why they will only focus on a particular aspect and leave other aspects behind. This is not very good, because the students will fail to realize the connection between the different social problems to the issue of climate change. They will fail to realize the social aspect, the health aspect, the law aspect of climate change. And that is a dangerous thing to do. I am highly advocating for the multidisciplinary approach to climate education, because in this way the students will realize that the problems that they are facing, that the problems the world is currently facing, are intersectional, and not just intersectional, are interconnected. So that's it. Well, on the bright side, the teachers could do a lot of things in order to prevent or to not make these challenges worse, to make these challenges, or to fix and try and solve these challenges. For example, they could take a master's degree, a PhD in climate education or in environmental sciences. Or if they are not willing to do the full coursework, they could just enroll for a diploma or a certificate program. That would help a lot in helping the teachers develop further their knowledge and skills on climate education. They could also take online courses. We have a lot of massive open online courses platform around, such as I don't know if I could mention some, but we have a lot. And you could opt to enroll in a certificate program or just audit the course. It's free. In that way, you can really develop your knowledge on a specific portion of climate education for a short period of time. That is very helpful. You could also attend training, seminars, workshops. I know that there are a lot. Especially now, we have a lot of webinars about the different aspect of climate change. I have just attended a webinar about climate justice and the connection of climate change to law. I'm also attending webinars on youth empowerment and something like that. So we have a lot of things. We can do a lot of things in order to prevent or to solve these challenges. And lastly, you could do your own readings. There are a lot of books available online. There are open access journals where you could read about the most recent information about the climate crisis and its connection to other aspects. So these are just 4 things that you could do. There are a lot more. And we just need to invest a little bit of time and a little bit of money in order to develop our skills, our knowledge, which is not just for us, but also for the youth, for the future, so to speak, or for the now. I know that that's not correct, but let's go with it. Now that we know what the climate education is, what environmental literacy is, then let's talk about how we can design our lessons and make the students more engaged, make our lessons more student friendly. Often when we design our lessons for the topics on climate change and environmental literacy, we tend to dwell more on the concepts and give little time for our students to demonstrate what they have learned. Well, I will be presenting some pedagogical techniques that you can apply in order to shift this design. So first, let's take a look at student-centered learning. This learning design moves the student from being passive receivers of information to active participants in the discovery or in the learning process. This design shifts the main actor of learning from the teacher to the students. This learning design also gives less focus on the subject matter at hand, but more on the students, their needs, their experiences, and their well-being. I think that's self-explanatory because of the student-centered approach or the student-centered learning. The student is the center. They are at the spotlight, so to speak. Well, we have a lot of student-centered teaching methods and strategies that we could apply. There are a lot of references that we could find online. We should just mix and match depending on the type of students that we have, depending on the resources that we have. And let's see what will work best with our lessons. I will present some of the methods that I think would work best for climate education and in developing environmentally literate individuals. Well, these are not only applicable to formal education. Again, we could also apply this when we are doing webinars, when we are doing teach-ins, when we are doing outreach programs. We could apply these things also. So first, we have discovery learning. In discovery learning, the students will learn by exploring the world around them, trying to answer the different questions they have in their mind by interacting with the real world or by performing simulations, by performing experiments. I think this is one of the best ways for students to learn about the environment. Um, by taking them to nature trips at a local park or a nearby lake, the students will already learn a lot about the environment, about the different organisms living in that certain ecosystem, the different interaction of the organisms with each other and with the environment. So, through discovery, the students will learn a lot of things. That's one way. Now, the next is experiential learning. This method exploits the experiences of the students in the past and also allowing the students to experience what they are learning. After experiencing the lessons, the students will reflect on what they have learned from those experiences. There are many ways on how we could make our students experience the lessons. We should not just focus on one. We mix and match in order to make our lessons more engaging. So basically, there are three ways in general in which we could focus our experiences that the students will do. So for the first one, we have the course-focused experiences. These experiences aim to let the students learn the conceptual parts of the lessons. For example, by doing guided experiments, the learners could learn by, let's say, the greenhouse effect or pollution. Or you could also give them simulation activities where they will pretend that they are in a catastrophe or an extreme weather event. In these ways, the students will learn and will get to experience these things even if it is just or they are just in a controlled environment. So those are course-focused experiences. Now, the next one is community-focused experiences. These experiences aim to immerse. These experiences aim to immerse the learners in the communities by giving them activities such as community outreach, what else? Talking to the people of the community, doing community works, and then this will make them realize the intersectionality of the different environmental problems, that different sectors of the society are affected differently by the problems that we are facing. Experiences like this would also help them look at the problem from a new perspective. And in doing this, they could think of doable actions that could help the community mitigate the effects of climate change. So that's the good thing about community-focused experiences. Now, the last thing is work-focused experiences. Now, these experiences aim to let the learners do on-the-job trainings, to have a feel of being in an environmental related work. This could be done through OJTs, through apprenticeship, through internships. You as a teacher could talk to a local, let's say, planning firm, environmental planning firm, or an environmental law firm, then let your students visit that place and experience what they are doing. That would help a lot in letting the students know how this job works or what these people are doing and potentially inspire them to be that in the future. So there are many ways in which we could give our students the experiences they need, not only to understand the concept but also to demonstrate the things that they have learned from the topics. Now, the last thing that I will be presenting is social reconstructionism. This is one of the many student-centered educational philosophies that I know. I think this is one of the best ways we could pattern our lessons, just for my opinion. So this philosophy of social reconstructionism views the school as a tool to solve social problems. Social reconstructionists believe that the school should provide a curriculum that fosters the development of future leaders. So the schools should not only develop educated individuals, they should not only develop literate individuals, but they should develop problem solvers, if I may phrase it that way. The school should develop future leaders that will lead the society, that will lead the community into solving the problems that we are facing. This philosophy posits that the school should help the students more socially aware, and because of their social awareness, help solve the different societal problems that there are. Because the climate crisis is a social problem. That's why I am including this philosophy, because I know that climate crisis is a social problem, and we could use this philosophy of social reconstructionism to guide us in developing leaders that will solve this problem. Now, in this philosophy, the students and the teachers will have different roles, different from that of the traditional or the conventional classroom. In a social reconstructionist, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In this social reconstructionism philosophy, the students and the teachers will have different roles from those in a conventional or traditional classroom. So, in a social reconstructionist classroom, the teachers will introduce the students to the different societal problems. We, the teachers, could also give them some of the pressing issues, some moral dilemmas, and other societal problems that the student could work on and really try to develop their social awareness and problem solving skills. For example, we could tell them that imagine that you are a CEO of a big oil company. Then you are thinking of closing down your company for environmental reasons. However, in doing this, you will leave hundreds, if not thousands, of families unemployed and could potentially lead them to poverty. What would you do? Well, I know some of the students would maybe suggest a just transition to renewable energy, not immediately closing down the company itself, helping the workers to move to other works, or maybe transition to a new company, maybe to a renewable energy company. Maybe the students would say that. So that's what the teachers would do. And the students, on the other hand, will analyze the problems given to them. They will then identify the main objectives that they want to solve. Then create an action plan based on those objectives and based on the main problem, and then try to implement their plans. So that's a social reconstructionist classroom. The students and the teachers will work hand in hand in order to ensure that the plan of the students are doable. And in all of those things that I have mentioned, we can summarize them into 4 pointers. These pointers should help us design lessons that will really engage the students, that will really make the students more engaged in the teaching learning process. This will help them not only to learn the concepts but also to demonstrate what they have learned. So first, we should always involve our students. We should not only, or the students should not only be passively sitting inside the classroom, listening to us blabbering about stuff. They should be actively taking part in the learning process. They should be the main actors of the process. Next, the students must be able to use the experiences. We must use the experiences of our students, because our students for sure have experiences that could be used in the discussion. Let them share these experiences, and in doing this, the students will be able to connect more on the lesson, or to the lesson, on a more personal scale. And maybe others would also learn from the experiences of their classmates. So that's the joy in sharing your experiences. You just do not learn from yourself or from your experiences, you also let others learn from you. The third one, we should let our students learn by doing things. Learning by doing. We should give them activities that will enable them to experience the lesson firsthand. I have given different activities wherein the students could really demonstrate what they have learned. The last one that I think that we teachers should do is we should guide them. We should be facilitating the activities and overseeing the whole process, making sure that the students are on the right track, making sure that the students are accomplishing their activities. Now, I have here some activities which you could use or which you could integrate in your lessons. Feel free to mix and match. Feel free to search for other activities that would work best based again on your students and on the lesson that you will be teaching. So first, from the most simple to the most complex, first we have experiments. You could give them experiments to work on, or you could also give them simulation activities where they could role play or simulate a certain event. You could also invite experts and do panel discussion where the students could ask these experts the questions that they have in mind, and the experts will answer. This will now cure the curiosity of the learners because they have someone, an expert in that field, that could answer their questions. So that's the good thing. Next, the students could also do some brainstorming activities where they could share their ideas with each other. We could also give them problem solving activities where they will try to solve a certain problem that we will give to them. Another activity that they could do is to debate, where they could analyze the different sides of things. And in doing debates, they will be able to see the different perspective, the different point of view in tackling a certain problem. And this will help them create more informed decisions later on. The next set of activities, first we have plugging activities, just simple plugging activities. They could also do cleanup drives in a community or in beaches, or some waste segregation activity. These activities would help them become more conscious about their trash, about the waste problem that the world currently has. The students could also do some community teach-ins, wherein they could do some information dissemination drives and seminars in the communities. They could also take part in climate strikes, or if not, they could organize a school-based climate strike or a local climate strike in their area. They could also start certain campaigns to shift their lifestyle and hopefully influence others to follow them and do the same. For example, there are a lot of campaigns now. Plant-based diet, zero waste lifestyle, composting, urban gardening, and those things. If we try to start doing those things and we share that to our social media accounts and encourage our followers to do the same, that would help a lot. Lastly, the students could immerse themselves in communities and do outreach programs. They could also do lobbying in their localities or municipalities. Lobby for a certain ordinance that they think would benefit the environment and the people in their community. And also, they could do climate and environmental communication activities, being reporters, bloggers, and the like. And a reminder for us teachers, we teachers could either help make or break the environmental literacy of our students. We can help make students do a lot of great things. It is up to us, teachers, on how we are going to make that happen by designing the correct lessons to help our students really be engaged and demonstrate their potential. And that's an amazing thing to do. Now that we know these different techniques, now that we know the different methods that we could give our students, or the different activities that we could give our students, the only thing that we need to do now is how we can transform the awareness into action, on how we can empower our students and how we can make them active in the climate movement. I think the first thing that we need to do is to make sure that the students are confident that we can win this fight for the climate. We must tell them that even though there seem to be a lot of issues that we are facing, and it must seem so overwhelming, we can still do something with our collective actions. With them, we can do something. We are not yet in the end game. We can still change the future. And this is only possible if the people are optimistic that the problem can still be solved. Well, the problem here is, yes, indeed, the climate change itself could not be stopped. It is a part of the Earth's processes, but now it is just expedited and aggravated by human activities. But what we can do is to slow down the effects of climate change so that we could spare the lives of millions, if not billions, of people. We can do this by necessary mitigation and adaptation measures, and a lot of things more. We should instill this in our students' minds. They should realize that there is still hope, and actually, they are the hope. Next is, as I have said in the earlier part of this discussion, and as I have been saying on and on, the climate crisis is not just an ecological topic. It has its social aspect as well. We are actually both directly and indirectly affected by the climate crisis. Directly because of the different extreme weather events and phenomena that we are experiencing. Indirectly because of politics, economics, public health, human rights, and other aspects. First, politics. Why do you think politics is involved or connected to the climate crisis? Well, because of the considerable influence of the people in high positions that they have in the environment. They can either support green bills or not. The politicians or the government could either push for the banning of fossil fuels or single-use plastics or not. So their power is really, or the power that they have could really have an influential effect, a very significant effect on the world's climate, on the environment. The next thing is economics. Why? Because the raw materials used in the production come from the environment. Where else would it come from? From the environment. And some companies would either illegally exploit or overexploit the natural resources just to keep up with the demands of the people. And big businesses hold a huge role in the environment because of the amount of waste and air pollutants and water pollutants and pollutants in general that they produce. And if they will not be held accountable, then our situation would just get worse. And connecting economics to politics, some of these big companies, some of these carbon majors, just like what we like to call them, have connections in the government that lobby for their interest. And if we do not stop that, then expect the worst. That's why it is connected. Next, we have public health. Because the climate crisis also affects our health, from the spread of tropical diseases to heat waves, and not just that. The climate crisis also makes the different social determinants of health worse. For example, normally, because of the history, because socio-economic oppression has been deeply rooted, people of colors, minorities are very susceptible to diseases because of history, for example, lung disease, COPD, and other things. But because we have the climate crisis, these social determinants of health are aggravated, meaning that these people are more affected now and their health are more in danger because we have this climate crisis. That's why it is connected. And connecting this to the last point that I would like to recognize, human rights. Because the climate change intensifies the socio-economic oppression and systemic racism felt by those who are most vulnerable, such as the people of color, minority groups, indigenous people, and the poor communities. Because you know that these people or these groups are the least contributors of the global greenhouse gases, but they are the most affected. Stepping up to the next level, in a global point of view, those countries who have the least carbon emissions, who have the least greenhouse gas emissions, are the most affected by the effects of climate change. So it is a human rights issue. That's why we have environmental injustices happening, and we need to uphold environmental justice. So those are the connection of climate crisis to the different social, political, economic, and health problems that we are facing. And we can solve this if we have a socially active group of citizens. If we have a group of socially active citizens, then we could solve the climate crisis. And just don't say that you're just a citizen, you're just an individual. No, we can be active in a lot of ways. Remember that we are not just individuals sitting idly at home. We are citizens of our country. We are citizens of the world. We can do many things. For example, we can influence our family members to adopt a sustainable lifestyle, and we could encourage them to start an eco-friendly or environment-friendly family tradition. We could also use our hobbies to promote eco-conscious living. We can have protest artworks or artworks that would influence others to join us in the climate movement, or artworks that would help your followers or help others become more aware of what is happening in the environment. And lastly, as citizens, we can be involved in democracy, in politics, either directly by joining the public office or indirectly by voting green and lobbying for green ordinances and laws. We need to tell the learners that we can do a lot of things, that there are a lot of ways that we can contribute to the climate movement. It is not always the big step. We can start at single small steps. And for us teachers and for the educators, we must guide the youth. They need an adult to support them as they are starting their advocacies. We need to ensure that they are taking the right path and that they have the things they need in order to move on and push through with their advocacies. We should accompany them on their journey until they can move forward on their own. We should mentor them, give them the valuable or necessary lessons that they need, teach them the skills that would help them in their climate advocacy. Just help them become more equipped with the knowledge and skills that they need. we should also oversee their climate advocacy, making sure that they are moving in the right direction, that they are in the right path, that they are not heading to failure. And if so, if they will fail, we must be there to support them. We must be there both in their highs and lows. We must be ready to comfort them, help them get back on their feet, and continue to move on with their climate journey. Or simply just somebody to be with them until they can do things on their own. And in doing these things, we can make sure that the youth will be empowered to start their advocacies and hopefully sustain these advocacies. We need to do this because the youth are the leaders of today, not tomorrow, not of the future, but today. So let's help them transform their awareness into action. Let us educate them on the things that they need, and after that, empower them to take on an active role in the climate movement. Because the youth holds so much power in them that, when unleashed and used correctly, can lead to great things. We could literally change the world. Thank you very much. Because the youth holds so much power in them that, when unleashed and used properly, can lead to great things. We can literally change the world. Thank you very much and good day. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. I hope that you have learned something from my discussions. Now, if you want to check the work that I am doing, especially in my blog, you may follow me in the different social media accounts flashed on screen, at Climate Wanderer on Instagram, Climate Wanderer on Facebook, and you can also visit my blog at Climate Wanderer. I will upload this presentation in my blog later on. And if you want to work with me on any project, or if you're interested in collaborating with me in a project that you have in mind, you may contact me through the following ways. First is, I have my LinkedIn account at /SIGFRED. You may send me a connection request and just send me a message. I also have a phone number wherein you can contact me through WhatsApp, which is +6399529544428, and you may send me an email at a.keithsigfred@gmail.com or at climatewanderer@gmail.com. Once again, this is Keith Sigfred supporting #FYW Climate Strike. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much.